Right, welcome back, and now this where the discussion, of course, begins. But before we dive into this discussion, let me give you a little bit of context and a story. So, there is a story about a noble king. Some might call the king a stubborn king who had a lot of information, servants. He could access to any information in regard to matters of the state of affairs. So the king will most often be brief about the weather pattern, and of course in this regard we are talking about the rain. And of course weathermen had predicted about the upcoming rain, and it was about time for the king to actually prepare for planting season. So when the weatherman came and tell him, we have seen wind from north, and it was about time, an indication that the rain is coming pretty soon. The king was dilly-dallying. We'll do this when the time is right. So the rain came, and the planting season, of course, it came and gone. And now it was time for reality. There is no rain, no food, and of course the king had to deal with that. Fellow Kenyans, the king could be you and I. The lesson is just simple. Information is out there. What are you doing about it? And in words of United Nations Secretary General, that is Antonio Guterres, the climate emergency is a race we are losing, but it's a race we can win. The rising temperatures are fueling environmental degradation and natural disasters, weather extremes, food and water insecurity. Sea levels are rising. The Arctic is melting. Coral reefs are drying. Oceans are acidifying rather, and forests are burning. It is clear that business as usual is not good enough. Now it's time for bold and collective action, and that sets the basis of our discussion tonight. And to help me unpack this discussion is my guest. That is James Kamau, Chairman, the Millennial Environmentalist, and of course Eric Mbugua, Secretary rather, at the Millennial Environment. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making time. And I'll begin with you, James. Yes. The discussion comes at a very, time that we have the information. The warnings have been pretty clear, very written on the walls with bold handwriting that the disaster is here with us. It's actually looming, and it's about time we do something about it. Well, let me take your account about the state of the environment right now. How will you describe the state of environment right now?
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans, for having us here. Yes, the state of the environment is quite critical, not only for the present generation, but most importantly for the future generation. It is quite dire for the human being and all life, in all life forms. Yeah, as you can see, when you hear something like the sea levels are rising, the world is 70% water. The moment the sea level rises even by inch, life is lost. Most life is on sea, is lost. When the sea level rises, the land reduces. When the land reduces, we have no place to live. When the sea level comes to the land, we have no water to drink, because all the water from the seas, as we know, is salty. So the situation where we are in is quite wanting, and it will require us to actually embrace and change our ways, change our approach, change the way we actually do things, because in such a situation, we can call it, it's called an emergency or a climate crisis. It requires level minds, it requires less politicking, more action, and actually more togetherness. It has to be all of us. It can't be a certain group. It has to come from the whole human race.
All right. Yeah. And of course, Eric, when you take a look at the warnings, and of course we have seen some signs. For example, the rising water level. Of course, we have seen burning forest in different parts of across the globe. We'll say it that way. Here in Kenya, we experience some extreme weather patterns, extremely high, sometimes cold. What does it tell about the environment right now? Is it time we change our tacks and actually embrace the new norms and adapt to what we call like affirmative actions in regard to climate change, because the disaster seems to be pretty closer to us than we could possibly imagine. What's your take?
Thank you. Thank you also for the opportunity to be here. And thank you for bringing the environmental education to the people at this time. As you said, there's a lot of things that are going wrong with our climate. There have been a lot of warnings, and for some reason, people always think it won't happen until it happens. So there's that level of ignorance, I would say, that is in the general public, that I'm also thanking you for taking the time so that we can also educate the public. Because information awareness is where I think there's a very big breakdown in terms of something we can try and do. The weather has been very rapidly changing, and even in Kirinyaga, you saw the floods. So people are really experiencing the adverse weather. So I would say for me, the constant deforestation that has been happening as people are looking for firewood and other fossil fuels, there have been various things that are adding on to the current problem. So for me, I would try and tell people, as much as affirmative action would work, we should also try and get on the ground to really try and have a tangible effect. Because the climate, as much as we will talk about it, it's the people who are on the ground that can really do something.
Okay.
Yes.
And Eric has really raised a very important point in regard to this discussion. It's about now to narrow down the discussion now to the real people. Remember about the story about the king?
Yes.
The king could be you and I.
Definitely.
Of course, so where do we begin? Because that is the point. Where do we begin, James?
Yes, Mr. Evans, we are not lost. There's nothing new. You know, they say there's nothing new under the sun. So whatever we are facing is quite not new. It was foretold. Wangari Maathai was here in the 1970s. She was talking about it. Before Wangari Maathai, we had so many conferences about this thing, this giant called climate change. We have known about it for years, decades actually, before even our parents were born. I'm sure my mom was not born and my dad when they were talking about climate change. So we've been knowing it. And actually we could not be here without climate change. We have to start there. Climate change is not the enemy. Climate change is the source of all life on Earth. Remember the ice age where the whole planet was cold? If it was not climate change warming, we could never have places where we could be living. The problem is over. It is have gone overboard. Our activities as human life, our daily life is what has increased climate change to the extremes. It goes with the saying, too much of something is poisonous. The problem is that we could have prevented where we are right now, but then where we are right now, we need to get cure. And to get the cure, we have to cure our mind. Because whatever you've told us, who does not know about the importance of a tree in this country? We all know the importance of our trees, but then the question is, who is actually willing to wake up and do all the necessary steps that they need to do to actually take care of a tree or plant a tree? Yes, that is a problem. The problem is we want to do part of the easy work, but then you don't want to go the whole way. We need to complete the journey. We need to complete the life cycle. Even right now, when you see the whole country, people are just planting trees. But then most people, nobody wants to know that this tree came from a seed, number one. And actually, after they planted the seedling, they don't know how this seedling will turn into a tree. So we just want to we are choosing the part of the process that we are comfortable with. What we need to change as a human race is actually be comfortable with the process from the beginning to the end. And that is the only way we are going to be. Like Eric just said, ignorance is bliss. They say ignorance is bliss, but then the bliss of the past generation is now our disaster. They ignored it because they had some flavor of bliss, but then right now we can't ignore it anymore. So there's no bliss anymore. It's actually now it is actually time to stand up and face it.
Okay.
And it is very simple. It's actually a personal decision, and it's a personal choice. I usually tell people, and even when you're starting this organization, you told people, it is just one hummingbird. The story of the hummingbird does not talk about hummingbirds. It talks about one hummingbird that saw the forest was on fire, went to the river to actually put out the fire. The fire is climate change. Yeah, that heat is climate change. The forest is a home. The big animals are the big corporates, the politicians, everyone who's running away from the fire. But that one hummingbird, that one local man or local woman, that is a change. So this message is to everyone. You can actually be the change you need to be. And actually you don't need anyone to help you with that decision, and you don't need anyone else to actually help you attain the goal.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's get a bit of practical. When I listen to the way you actually, put it clearly, it's an issue of mindset.
Yes.
And now you are the people on the ground,
Yes.
and you have actually, traversed across the country planting trees. So I want you to talk to me about the mindset of ordinary Kenyan who maybe he might not really, take the issues of climate change into, account, or something very serious. So in order to win this fight, we need to bring everyone on board, in as much as we talk about the initiative, one hummingbird. But for me, I think it's an umbrella of approach.
Yes.
If you were to make change.
Yes.
So talk to me about, the mindset and perception. So how should we shift the discussion?
That's a good question, and thank you for putting it in that way. So for me, when you say mindset, it's every day when you wake up, who tells you to drink tea or maybe to take a shower before you go to work? It's just something that is built in and comes naturally to you. So what for us we are trying to do is try and bring that awareness to even the younger people. Because, if you want something to get lost, it will get lost in 20 years if you don't instill it early on in life for every person.
Okay.
So for us, it's trying to teach people. When you have, there's the movement that we have ongoing. It's called Stop Seed Abortion, where it cuts across every Kenyan. Ata Mama Mboga, it is applicable to her. So what we do, we tell everyone, there's that sweet mango, that sweet orange, that sweet pawpaw you ate. Even avocados, I know, are very popular. Where do the seeds go? Naturally, they end up in the dustbins. So for us, it's just take that seed, look for somewhere. You can get soil anywhere. And you can also use recyclable materials like a milk packet, or even a bread, the paper for the breads. Put some soil, put the seed there. You can have it as a small nursery, even just behind your kitchen or on your kitchen sill window. You put it there and it grows into a nice, beautiful seedling. You can look for us and we go show you a nice place where you can plant it. And we try and make it into a bigger avocado. People enjoy the fruits.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are trying to start with a seed and slowly try and get people to start engaging with the environment.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I want us to switch gears to now, the reason why you are having this discussion is because somebody, somewhere, did not do the right thing. That's why we are having this discussion. And I want us to talk about the human activities that has resulted to this climate change. We have seen the global warming. Of course, the signings are there, the writings are on the wall, and it's something that is, it's no longer a discussion of when will it, because it's already happening. And of course, talk to me about the human activities and who should we blame for this, the global warming, the climate change, and everything that, the calamity that is now befalling the mankind. So where should we shift the blame?
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans. Your approach to the question is such manly or such human so that we have to have somebody to point a finger at. Our take as the Millennial Environmentalists is there's no time for blame game. We can't even blame anyone. Like, for example, right now, that's why you see as an organization we don't do strikes and things like that. Because who is to blame, really? Who is to blame?
But do you understand that because the discussion that you're having is very critical,
yes,
and somebody somewhere is sleeping on the job. Somebody is not doing something right. That's why we are having this discussion. In as much as, of course, I agree with you. For now, it's too late for blame game.
Yes.
But of course, shouldn't we look them in the eyes and point their, for their mistakes, so that in as much as we try to advocate for greener environment, clean energy, and to, water, and of course even air pollution, shouldn't we be, addressing this to the people that concerns them the most?
Definitely, but then I've come to realize when it comes to my life, I'll just take it personally. When it comes to my life, I'm the one breathing the air, I'm the one who is missing the water. I'm the one who is paying the extra cost for the avocado because I don't plant. I'm the one whose life is affected on a daily basis. As much as somebody else could have done somebody better, some minister somewhere, some leader somewhere, or even my parents' generation. If we were to blame, we could just go, our grandparents' generation. Why didn't they do something? But I personally was taught how to plant trees by my grandmother. And that generation, as much as my grandmother never planted every seed that they come through, the knowledge I have today, even me going to university, was from that. So what we can do right now, Mr. Evans, is actually stop. Stop and ask yourself as a human, as an individual, what am I doing to better the situation that we are in right now? Because if I was to start blaming people today, I'll start saying, for example, our president told us everybody to plant trees for their birthday, right? But then the same president is adding taxes on us to the extent that I can't afford a meal. If I can't afford a meal, how will I buy a tree to plant which is 100 and I'm supposed to do it for my sister and my siblings or even my children? It doesn't make sense. You see, one hand is not actually uplifting the other. So I can blame the president. As well, I can come as the Millennial Environmentalist, as what Eric is telling us, and tell you guys, as much as this other side of life is this way, we could try this solution. You eat fruits every day in your home? Yes. What do you do with the seed? You see, when actually the conversation becomes about yourself, you actually see all the loopholes you can seal and actually have no one to blame at the end of the day, because if today in Kenya, every Kenyan planted a trees, if then the CS, even the president himself could not change anything, could he? If if the 49 million of us planted every seed we came across today, what could the president do about it? Or the CS? But then we have to make that decision ourselves. And instead of looking into him to come and save us, we have to save ourselves.
Okay, let's talk about the triple crisis. Now we have the climate change, the nature and biodiversity loss. Then we have the pollution and water waste. Well, these are man-made crises. These are man-made crises. And of course, because the solution lies in this triple crisis. So when we talk about now pointing fingers to the people who are concerned, the people that actually, we call them the perpetrators, because we have a message and the message is clear. Whatever you're doing, stop it. Did you think, shouldn't we address them in the right manner and tell them that whatever you're doing is bad? And of course, now let's move to this particular direction because we want a safer environment, a clean environment, and of course for our children and our children's children, the generation to come. Did you think that should be the discussion that we should be having right now?
That's a good question, and that is well put. I hope even the necessary people who, you know, as much as one does things, you also know that you are also part of the blame. So I hope even the organizations and the people in charge are listening in and knowing that we see them and we expect them to act as well. So for me, I get your point of pointing fingers. And it's true there are some major organizations that should be doing more in terms of making sure Nairobi River is clean, other places in Nairobi are good, and even people have good and safe drinking water everywhere. That is the truth. That is the ideal environment that we should expect as people anywhere in the world. But for some reason, these things don't work. And that is where awareness comes. People, the social media giants, guys who are very big on social media, always do their best to expose these frauds and these things. So there's various ways we try and take the fight to them. Because you can pull a strike this week. Everyone will go out. It will trend, most likely on Twitter or any other social media space. Then after that, what do we do next? The perpetrators are known, and we try to address them using social media, sending letters, trying to get them to be more active. In some situations, they feel the pressure and they will perform. But sometimes the truth is, we know how sometimes things don't go as we plan. So the best thing, as much as we push the blame to them, we should also look to ourselves. Because if the forest is on fire right now, will you try and say, it's the monkey that lit the match? You can't be there. You have to be, guys, the river is that side. Let's go to the river, get that water. Because the monkey is long gone. So that is my take on the matter.
All right. And in this particular discussion, we have, the perpetrators and the victim. In this context, much of the blame is, shifted to the developed countries, the Europe, and of course, Africans. The African countries often are the, let me call them the bearers of this, the heavy burden. And this bring another very important concept of it. We're talking about the carbon credit. Many African head of states, environmentalists actually are advocating for this, that we want our fair share of, this, we'll call them the cake. Some might call them the national cake. But the point is, the most affected countries are African countries, and they are the less, polluters of the environment. And now this bring the very important aspect and conversation of carbon credit. So I want to take your opinion on this. What do you think? Is this a right move? And of course, do you see a possible, a change of tax and even a better future in regard to, what we can get in this environment space?
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans. I tell you, we have a very controversial takes on such matters, and even in front of other environmentalists. For me, number one, I'll stop the victim mentality. If I say US, or let's say, for example, China is producing a lot of waste because they have a certain industry, but I am the person who's producing the raw material. I produce coffee in Kenya. I have to actually sell this coffee so that my people can actually, the roads have to be made. We know this, yeah? But then I'm selling coffee as a raw material to you, Evans. But then I'm saying, Evans, because you're using my coffee to change my coffee, the raw material, to the coffee, the sachet, you are the one destroying the environment. Where is my part on this? You see, that is, we actually have to come to the table and put all our cards on the table, because everyone's we are hiding our cards. All actually the lower countries or the third world countries are all producers of raw materials, and they are the biggest consumers of whatever, because we consume most coffee. Africa produces the raw material, but then we consume the same coffee. Nigeria produces oil, but then oil is refined somewhere else. South Sudan the same. You understand? So we are part of the process. We are in this chain together.
Okay.
Number one, when you understand our role in this place, in this chain of climate change, in the climate crisis, and then, as we say in Kiswahili, kila mtu oshe kwake. Me as a Kenyan, I do my part, understanding the industrial position that what all they're doing is actually doing this, let them take responsibility. It is called pay for economic services, PES. It is a lesson you're all taught in environmental scientists. I've been taught this in class. Pay for ecosystem services. The whole environment, we're depending on the ecosystem to doing so many things. Biofiltration, you're depending on our swamps to clean our sewage. It's called biofiltration. But what are we returning in these swamps? Are we protecting them? We're expecting our trees to actually clean our air, because when you drive here or use a motorbike, you know you're destroying the environment. You know you're polluting the environment. All of us are polluters.
But James, yes, they agree.
Yes.
They are part of the problem.
Yes.
But they are saying, in this pie of a bigger problem, there's just a fraction of a problem, and they admit and they accept. But they are saying, when it comes to now the resources, that if we have to contribute, let's get the fair share of ours. This is the conversation that African head of states, the environmentalists from Africa, they are saying, like, in as much as we all contribute to this, crisis, but give us our due as we deserve. That is the conversation.
I agree with you completely. US should pay. As I told you, the people who have the industry should pay their equal shares. Even us who are producing the raw material should pay our equal share. The problem is this. Today, when you're given the equal share by US, won't we be the same people coming here to KUTV saying the money was used by our leaders in a bad way? If we see the speck in our eyes we'll understand why there is a speck in our brother's eyes. Okay. The problem with most Africans is even the president of Eritrea, when we were here for the ICA, the climate summit in Africa, he was the person. Why did he stand out? Because the president of Eritrea told the other leaders, what are we doing? You can't say a person in US has polluted Nairobi River. It is the people in Gara who have mechanics and we take all our cars there. Isn't that the truth? Why can't we start there first?
All right.
And then when you get the bigger share that you're complaining about, you can use it properly.
Okay.
Yes.
Eric, what's your take on this? Do you think we deserve our equal share?
Yeah, definitely. Why not? Yeah, as you said, Africa is one of the least polluting continents. Yet we get the brunt of some very severe climate change. So I feel as they had talked in the summit, they should honor the agreements and try to fund, because as much as we try and be the change, if you have more capital and resources, that you have people who are willing to do the work on the ground, you should try and give them their equal share. Because trust me, if we decide, let's go and start reforestation in somewhere like Molo or Aberdare, which is our water catchment, we need fuel to get there.
Okay.
We need the proper items to use when we get there. How do you get there? As much as you can dig from your own pocket, it would be good to have the support of the various organizations that are supposed to do their part, joining hands and creating a better network to be able to do these things more sustainably.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we are running out of time, but I want to give you each pretty quick 1 minute for your closing remark. I'll begin with you, James.
Yes, so for my closing remarks, I'd like to tell each and every person, you are the hope, you are the change you're seeking outside here. If you want to actually play a part in the environment, it's very easy. It does not require money, it just requires your time and your passion. If you can do it in your home, with your children, with your family, it can actually be one of the best activities that you can bond with your kids. So today, do not throw away your seed, actually complete the life cycle. And 3 years from now, you'll actually be eating avocados and enjoy from the same tree. Thank you.
Right. Eric?
For me, I would thank you for the opportunity, and I hope the people listening in have taken notes and know that any change starts with you. And it starts with the mind, and gradually it becomes a habit. So let's try and make it a habit. As much as we know who to blame, let us look inside, let us look within to find the change and be the change we are trying to see. So try and keep it as green as possible, and thank you very much, Evans, for your time.
All right, well, gentlemen, thank you so much for making time for this very important discussion about, state of environment, where we talk about matters, climate change, and of course the possible steps and solutions that we could take as a nation, as a globe, that is Africa, and of course the entire continent, to avert the looming crisis. That has been James Kamau, chairman, that is the Millennial Environmentalist, and Eric Mbugua, secretary, the Millennial Environmentalist. Once again, thank you so much for making time.